What's up, Ruby fans, and welcome to the Boopcast, episode 11. We are your host, SheNoob, and is it this way?
Yeah, maybe
I think
it's
so.
Cory.
Cory.
I think you're that way.
Yeah,
I
don't know anymore. I honestly don't. So, yeah, welcome to the Boopcast, episode 11. As you can see, we have an incredibly special guest this week, and I am terrifically honoured to introduce to you all Alex Abraham, the score composer for Ruby. Welcome to the podcast, Alex.
I am very, very, very happy to be here. Thank you so much for asking me to join you.
We're very, very happy for you to be here.
What's the weather like where you are?
Hot.
Hot.
It's hot. Well, you're in. Now remind me, Cory, where are you from?
Arizona.
Is it hot there?
Yeah, it's still hot here.
Okay, well I'm in Boston, Massachusetts, and it's cold. I had to wear a fleece and a pea coat.
Oh.
And that didn't even do it. Anyway,
Wow.
Okay, all right, okay. Enough about the weather.
So, before we get into Chapter 11 and asking Alex some stuff about his work, we have quite a few viewer questions this week. I am keeping my Twitter open, so there is still time to submit while we record this, at SheNoob087, at Cory11333. Andrew! Sorry?
Am I allowed to ask questions?
Yeah, of course you are.
No, via Twitter, though.
Oh, yeah, go for it. Andrew from YouTube asks...
I'm going to interrupt all the time.
It's alright, with the Skype delay, it's really easy to interrupt each other. Cory and I have that problem all the time.
Okay.
Who do you think the voice actors will be for some of the characters we haven't met yet? For example, Sienna Khan. So, Ruby, especially this volume and last volume, has been taking on a lot of professional anime voice actors, but then there's also a lot of members of the Rooster Teeth family that have not been in the show, such as Jeff, for example, Jeff Ramsey. So, yeah, who knows? We will find out, I guess. Somehow I don't think we're meeting Sienna Khan this volume. We might, but I doubt it. I think she's going to be a next volume kind of thing. So, yeah.
I'm still not convinced Sienna Khan is a she. You always say she, but like when they showed the transferring of different leaders in that one flashback, it looked like a male took over.
Yeah, but maybe
granted, that male looked like Adam, so...
Maybe they thought at that time it would be a man, and then they changed their minds and decided it would be a woman. Who knows? But at any rate, Sienna is not really a male name, but, you know, anything can happen, really. William Oliver on Twitter asks, what is your favourite Chibi skit? I'm so glad he asked this question, because we want to talk about Chibi. Mine I know straight away. It's Pyrrha's first skit, where she's, like, freaking out and moving metal objects around everywhere. That's my favourite skit. Ah! I'm sorry! I love that skit so much. What's yours, Cory?
I mean, you know I love any skit where they say, now that's a katana.
Oh, that's your favourite quote ever. Just drive me insane with it.
Yeah, but I really loved the pillow fight skit.
That one was really good too. I love the floor is lava as well. That's one of my favourites. What about you, Alex? Do you have a favourite Chibi skit?
So Ruby Chibi version of Jean is... Uh-oh, my sushi is arriving. I have to go get this. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, go on.
I told you this would happen.
Okay, so Alex has just popped out for a hot minute to get his sushi. So we'll just answer the next question. We'll come back to Alex's favourite Chibi skit. So Straight Outta Remnant asks, who is your favourite character excluding Weiss?
Oh, he knows us so well.
Well, it was Pyrrha. Can I still say Pyrrha? I mean...
You love Velvet, though.
Yeah, Velvet and Emerald hold a pretty special place in my heart. Yeah, Velvet. I'll say Velvet.
Oh.
Don't think too hard about it.
For a second, I was gonna say Cinder, and then I was like, no, that's not at all true.
You quite like Cinder.
Oh, God. I like Cinder's design. I don't like her as a person.
Oh, no, she's a horrible person.
Oh, God. I don't know.
Sorry, folks. I just got out of work. I'm hungry. It's like 10:30 here, and I haven't had dinner.
Oof. Yeah,
So-
it's 10:30. It's clock on the wall.
Yeah. I got some ginger ale.
Nice.
I've got napkins. And I've got my chopsticks. Everything you need for a balanced meal.
I think
Including
somebody
the
just sent me a question.
Uh-oh.
No, it was a text message from Optus. Okay, never mind. My phone went off. Okay, so we'll ask Alex this question. Who is your favorite character from the show?
From which version? Proper?
Show proper, yeah.
All right. So,
It's a loaded question.
no. No, it's not. It's not a hard question at all. It's just during season 3, Pyrrha became my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was one of the first characters that they had that had a lot of depth to her internal struggle. And I really, it just really jived with me. So, it was Pyrrha this season, because of course, no spoilers, but it can't be Pyrrha. This season, Ren has totally, just completely blossomed. Ooh.
Ah!
As a character, and I really like that too. So Ren's taken over as one of my new favorite characters. For good people. Now, bad people, that's a different story altogether. What do you guys think about Emerald?
I really love Emerald.
I love Emerald.
But why?
Because I voiced her in Ruby Abridged, so she's like, I just love her, because she's bad, and she's, I just love
she's
her.
bad, but she's, reluctant.
Reluctant, right? There seems to be something there that's, not being shown, or, I think it was either in episode 6 or 7. Which one was the one last season where there was all the cuts to black?
That was 7. It was
7,
with all
yeah.
the flashbacks.
Yeah.
And you hear things, but you don't see them, and it's kind of implied, and I'm really not sure what exactly transpired, but it's implied that Cinder kind of beats her around or something. It's implied. I'm not sure. I don't want to. I can't verify that at all. But the thing is, that moment where they're looking down at the fighting going on in Beacon, and she goes, "It's almost sad."
Yeah.
There's something really. I feel like there's a lot of depth to her character that we haven't seen yet, and I'm really looking forward to it. She could end up being that kind of character that flip-flops from bad to good, or somewhere in the middle, or something like that. I just think there's so much more to her, that's why I like her.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Especially because a lot of people talk about in one of her first showings in season 2, she seems really excited to see Cinder, and so I almost kind of think that, especially once we learned more about her, that Cinder is the first person who kind of cared for her, even though it seems to be in a really abusive and not great way. Cinder's kind of the first person to actually care for her, and that's why she's kind of going with everything.
What's the name of that syndrome? There's a particular...
Stockholm.
Yeah,
Stockholm syndrome. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mercury's just
Evil.
he's just utter evil, and that.
He's just a dick.
Exactly. That rarely appeals to me. Whereas somebody like Torchwick, who is just a straight up evil guy, but there's he's got so much personality, and Gray voiced him so incredibly.
Oh, he did.
And it's just, he was such a well-developed, written, and performed villain.
Oh, he was my favorite villain until they killed him. But I'm actually so sad that you said that Ren is your favorite character now, because I'm like, he's so gonna die in the finale. It's not even funny.
I know, we've been saying it since episode 9.
I will be surprised if he doesn't, let's put it that way. I'm keeping my fingers crossed secretly behind my back. AC Gears and Arms asks, why the motive from Lucis Notori for the Grimm this volume? So we've noticed that a few times throughout Volume 4, when we hear score while the Grimm are present on screen, you hear that motive from the beginning of Lucis Notori, which was the song written for Grimm Eclipse. Was that like a conscious kind of association, or...?
Yeah, that was, I don't want to speak for him too much, but no. Jeff made that suggestion.
Okay, awesome.
It was like the very first episode we were working on, we were divvying up the work, and he had me do the opening, and he said, I don't remember exactly what the conversation was, but he's like, I think it'd be really cool if it opened up with, like, you know, that thing, and I was like, I love that melody. I mean, I don't know if I should talk about, like, the motifs that I've been kind of using for Grimm and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's evil. It's dark. It's twisted.
Yeah.
It's like it's almost unnatural harmonically.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that suits something like a mindless creature, you know.
Yeah.
So yes, it has been on purpose. Yes, it was determined ahead of time.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about Lucis Notori is the first, you know, sort of pre-verse, I suppose. And
yep.
that it is so harmonically, like, off-key and really quite unnerving, and it's a good accompaniment for the Grimm on screen in Volume 4, especially the moment in this particular chapter when we saw the Nuclevi up close for the first time. And you just hear...
How are you?
I was like, oh, it's so creepy. Yeah, so Alfie's25 on Ruby Amino asks, are you going to release the full Ruby Chibi soundtrack? I'm sure you've heard this question more than once.
Well, Jeff would say, I don't know.
He would.
I would say, I also don't know for sure.
No.
I will... I'll give you more than that, though. I mean, I go through the Reddit comment threads and stuff like that. Excuse me. I'm just a rude person. I'm eating, I'm smoking.
You're fine.
I'm the worst person to interview ever. Terrible.
You're fine, Alex.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's part of me. Come on. The self-deprecating. Just go with it.
Okay.
I've read the comment threads. I know that people want that. I don't think that we're against it. I think that it would take a couple conversations, and it would take us deciding whether or not we want to take what we have and just release that, or maybe expand on it. And if that needs to occur, you know, where does that fall in our timeline? Because, you know, behind the scenes, there are still other things that we're doing and going on and working on, stuff like that. So that would all have to be determined well ahead of time before we would be able to give any kind of answer on that. Or I could be completely wrong, and for some reason we decide, maybe we'll throw one of the things, or like a teaser or compilation, on the soundtrack from Volume 4. I don't know, and I don't want to be taken at my word on that. I'm just saying there's a possibility that something could happen. I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though. We had so much fun doing those rearrangements of Jeff's songs for Chibi. Like, I remember the first thing that he did, and I remember the first thing that I did, and we didn't tell each other what we were going to do, and then we just swapped and laughed our asses off. I just like this really so like, you know, a song like Red Like Roses, so dark and meaningful and purposeful and foreboding and all this stuff. And then I just turn it into this and I don't know, it's just really, really funny.
Yeah.
I think I made one mistake. It was like at a certain point it was like, because what the way that Chibi works as opposed to Ruby proper is very more often than not what we're doing for Chibi is we're taking songs, rearranging them, and then giving Rooster Teeth the mixes and the stems so that they can sort of take them apart and move them around and cut them up as necessary. Whereas in Ruby, we're given scenes and we just straight up score to the scene. You know, it's not like we don't write music ahead of time. We write it for the scene when it comes to Ruby proper. But for Chibi, a lot of it, except for some specific ones, like the pillow fight scene that you were talking about, Cory, that was scored. You know, they gave me a scene and they said, we kind of want this to be a little bit more like a straight up action cue with the same kind of timings and stuff that you might do for the season proper. So I treated it like that. But most of it was, we just kind of, there was like a month or two where we were just making tracks. And the point that I was going to say was that I did one of the ballads, and the response that I got was, maybe we shouldn't do the ballads because they're, you know, the lyrics are so meaningful and purposeful. You know, there is a limit to, there is such a thing as not heresy, but going too far with taking a serious song and making it goofy. Like some songs you shouldn't do that to. No, I think the one that I did was I think I did All Our Days.
I was gonna say All Our Days, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, and he was, and the response was just like, yeah, maybe stay away from the ballads.
Fair enough. Yes, some songs just can't really go outside of their genre. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so as far as the Chibi soundtrack is concerned, not anytime soon, but not completely off the table.
I wouldn't say it's off the table. I'm just saying that we haven't even begun to talk about the soundtrack for Volume 4. You know, I only just wrapped up my end of things on Monday night.
Yeah, just the other day. Yeah.
Right, and Jeff is plugging away at some songs. I don't want to spoil anything, but the stuff that he has in store, people are going to go crazy for.
Oh, I know. We always do.
I just want to say how... Okay. I don't believe necessarily in luck. I believe that you can do a lot of things to put yourself in a situation in which something lucky could happen. But if you hadn't done the thing to get you to the point where if that lucky thing came along, you'd be ready to take it, it wouldn't happen. But I feel lucky every single time that I get to work with Jeff, with Jeff's music, and just being associated with him. He's a cool dude.
He really is a very cool dude. Yeah. I lost my questions there. Oh, there we go.
And Casey's pretty cool too.
Casey's lovely. I've interacted with Casey Williams on Twitter, and she's just a lovely and such a talented young person. Very jealous of somebody. You know, she was 11 when she started singing for Red vs. Blue.
Something like that.
Insane. Yeah, falling towards the sky, I think, was one of her first tracks on Red vs. Blue, and that's just like an 11-year-old can sing like that. That's insane.
I thought that was avocado. But
oh,
it was
wasabi.
Oh.
Yuck. Oh
it's
no.
okay. Now, I want to say this about Casey Williams. I think I said it on my AMA, so I'm repeating myself. But as long as I have your attention, Casey Williams, and I don't want to come across as ageist, and it's so hard not to when I say this, because she is young. But she's a very wise and... She's a wise individual who just knows and knows how to be a person who is in her situation where she is known to a lot of people. She is known for having a very good talent, and she knows how to handle herself in a way that some other younger people that we've seen historically have not been able to achieve. She manages to stay grounded,
Yes.
you know, and accept praise with both grace and humility, but also own it at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a very fine balance what she's managed to accomplish. And I don't know where she got that. So props to her and Jeff for their ability to just be both hardworking, talented, and generous, and just really caring people. So
I find that I know what you're saying about, you know, humility, and I find that you know, I've interacted with quite a few people from the Rooster Teeth Productions, and there's a real sense of humility throughout everybody that works at Rooster Teeth. There's like, you know, they're just so humble about their work, and they really care about their community. And you know, like, we've had people on this podcast that we were like, never thought that we'd even get the chance to talk to, such as yourself. And it's like, it really is an incredible thing to be a part of this community, because it's just like, it's so unique. You know, other companies, they don't even, are not even interested in interacting with their consumers and that. So I think it's a real thing that's carried throughout all of you in Rooster Teeth. It's, you know, it's a real credit to all of you.
If I can speak on that, I think that really started like from the very beginning with Rooster Teeth.
Yeah.
You know, they are the media entertainment equivalent of a startup company, and they're also, you know, whether or not they knew it at the time, they were also pioneering both user content, crowdsourcing, and immediacy of delivery. So they were able to be creating and interacting and creating and interacting and receiving feedback almost, you know, in a continuous loop. And I think that because of that, they've developed such a close relationship with their fan base and their community, because without it, they wouldn't have created or been able to create what they've, you know, been doing for what, 17 years, 16, 17 years?
Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, you know, I could go on forever about how amazing Rooster Teeth is as a company, but, you know, I know everybody watching shares my sentiments as well, so. We have a couple more questions from our viewers. So Perry has asked, Alex, what is your favorite song or score from the show to this point? I know it's a lot of music.
We can probably break this down into a couple of things. like theme songs? Do we want to talk theme songs, or do we want to? Okay, so my favorite theme song. All right. Let me start over. Ever since season 2, Jeff usually about a month or so before like production goes into full swing, he's got an idea and a draft of the theme song for the season. And I came into Ruby Volume 1 about maybe a third the way through the production, but from then on out, I've usually been like right at the beginning of a season. I've been working on stuff. So the second season. So basically, what I'm saying is, I did not get to hear the first versions of "This Will Be the Day," but I loved it when I heard it. So when season 2 comes around and he shows me "Time to Say Goodbye," I actually told him that I thought he one-upped himself, because I thought there was something really, 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 really cool about it that set it apart from "This Will Be the Day." You know, he is so humble about this. He truly believes that he got lucky the first time, and that he's been trying desperately to keep going and come out with a new thing that you know is at least to that standard ever since. And I personally think that he's more than accomplished that goal on more than one occasion. When it came to When It Falls, I thought it was badass. I thought, man, this is the coolest thing. You know, it's got a lot of it kind of sounds like bands that I listened to when I was younger. It's a little bit more modern. It's a little bit less well, I mean, it was a little bit less Jeff in a way, you know? Not that Jeff can't be everything, because we know Jeff can be everything, because the man loves to just produce any kind of music. But it was darker. You know, it had the screaming. It had the sort of atonal guitar lines and stuff like that. And that really, I really liked that.
Yeah.
And then they released the intro by itself, and I remember the next day, because we both work at Berklee College of Music. I saw him on the street, and he's got this frown on his face. It looks sad, and I'm like, dude, what's up? And he's like, why didn't you tell me? I'm like, what? He's like, why didn't you tell me the song sucked? And I was like, dude, it doesn't suck. He's like, well, the kids on the internet, you know, they're blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, dude, you wait. You wait, because we know what's going to happen. And they just aren't ready for it. And the song actually perfectly fits the season. And they will come to understand that it was the perfect intro for that particular season.
Yes. Everybody was... I remember when the intro for Volume 3 dropped, everybody was confused, because it was so different from the previous 2 volumes. You know, it was really foreboding, and it really well described everything that was coming. But none of us were prepared for it. And it's like, by the time it actually got there, we all understood. And suddenly the intro made perfect sense. And, like, yep. I knew when I saw it that that's what they were setting up. And, yep. But, you know, the show had been, you know, this light, happy, bubbly, funny thing with a bit of a darker undertone for the last 2 years. And nobody was prepared for the drop at the end of episode 9 or even episode 6 when, you know, it all just went downhill from there. And, like, even though you guys technically told us since the intro was released that this is coming, like, get prepared, no. None of us were ready for it. And, you know, you were, like, right in saying that just wait for it. It will make sense to everyone, because it eventually did. And so I think it was a moment of as well of, like, it was a learning exercise for the community, and that we just have to trust you and that you know exactly what you're doing. So, yeah, but I am a huge fan of When It Falls, like, especially because it is darker, and Divide is probably one of my favorite songs in the entire show, because that's really dark. And
that one's really fun to play live.
So. I bet it is. It's a really cool song, and I just jam to it all the time, and I'm like, yeah, death and destruction, let's do this. It's such a good song.
When I first heard that, and it gets to that part where it's just there's this big like chord, and there's a big harmony vocal thing, and then it just drops, and then it's like the no.
Oh my gosh! Like, yeah, that gives me chills.
I listened because he'll send me things and be like, hey dude, can you listen to this real quick? And I'll listen to it and be like, dude, this is fucking amazing. It's like, what are you So yeah. As far as themes are concerned, my favorite Jeff theme was the Torchwick theme. I thought it was the perfect balance of sort of humorous, crafty, but still villainous. And I loved to work with it when we were, doing Torchwick scenes. Mm. So that's my favorite stuff of Jeff's. What? Oh, now I'm going to talk about myself?
No, yeah.
I did. So last season. Oh, my psychiatrist just texted me.
Oh.
No, it's okay. Everybody can know that I see a head doctor.
No, but both Cory and I do as well, so it's fine.
Oh yeah, no. So
I was actually planning on mentioning mine in this episode for a reason.
Oh, okay.
He keeps me sane while I'm working. There were a couple of really cool, there were a couple things that, okay, it's hard for a person to talk about their own music and and talk about what they like without feeling like they're saying, I think I'm really good. And I want to preface with that. No, I'm 100% serious right now. I want to preface with that because when I say I liked this portion of something that I did, it's because I surprised myself. I surprised myself. It was like, oh, wow, that kind of worked. That was cool. It doesn't always happen. And I've personally never tried to expect too much from myself. Because if you expect too much from yourself, you don't try. And if you don't try, then, nothing happens. Excuse me, I just burped. But there were a couple things that turned out kind of cool last year that I liked. One of them was the scene. Can I do it by scenes?
Yeah, go ahead. Because
now that my SoundCloud is kind of devoid of tracks, I can't go by title names. There's a scene where sort of Cinder interrupts the party, so to speak, in episode 11.
11.
And it goes from being like this sort of over epic, big choir screaming, wah, to just this quiet, like Celeste mixed with a music box. And the drop in intensity and the idea to make it a little bit more melodic and slow and sort of sad and dark was actually Carrie's suggestion at first. And so I mean it's funny when you're writing music. I'm talking like I do it all the time. I'm not saying I'm a professional. Trust me, that's not what I mean. But I'm saying that on this show, in my experience, you're not the only one writing the music. There's somebody else there who's got an idea, and they've already worked very closely with writing the script, with animating the scene, with working with the voice actors, and they've got a feeling that they know they want to try to portray. So they've got input already on what they hear. They might not be able to express it completely through notes or instrumentation, but they've got ideas, And then so I feel sometimes like what what a role, not the role. I'm not saying that every film scorer or visual media music composer should be doing all the time, is, you know, only taking direction from somebody else and then just translating it. You know, we do more than that. But what was the question?
So I think what you're getting at is your answer is your favorite piece of score is from that moment in chapter 11, and that piece is called Such Arrogance as well, and that happens to be my favorite piece of score of yours as well. Probably my favorite piece of score in the entire show.
Oh wow, that's very flattering, and wow, I don't know what to say to that.
It's just,
I hope I don't...
yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with that moment in Volume 3. You know, right at that moment, Cinder's just shot Amber, you know, the transfer hasn't worked. Yang gets her arm cut off. Adam has just stabbed Blake. Like, it's all going down in quick succession,
right.
And, like,
so
we're freaking out.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily just the music that's doing it. It's the thing that happens when the music and the scene become a thing of their own.
Yeah.
Like a mixture. I don't know. There was a bunch... Everything from about episode 9 onward, you know, I had a lot of fun working on, because I was using a lot of choir stuff, and you know, I was just sort of... It was almost like they let me off my leash, and I just sort of went for it. But let's talk about this season. This season, there are 2 cues that stand out as far as things that I was like, you know, I think I like how that came out, you know? Not like, and again, it's like, it's such a hard thing to balance. I don't want to... I really hope that I'm not coming across like, man, that thing I did was so good.
No, not at all.
Like, okay. It's just like, let me put it this way then. I am so happy and sad that I got to do the scene where Jean is training in the woods, accompanied by a film, a recording of Pyrrha. That cue... I wrote it while I was at my parents' house, and it was probably a good thing that I had moral support while I was doing it.
Yeah.
My mom actually watches the show. My dad, I think he appreciates it. I think he thinks it's cool that, you know, we're working on a show, and, like, you know, there's some people that like it. It's kind of cool. I actually bought him the some of the Ruby not action figures, but like figurines for Christmas, and he was super stoked. He especially likes the Yang one. But he's English, so that, you know, whatever.
Cory's are all sat behind his head there.
Yeah, they're right there.
Oh, cool. The only one that I have is Pyrrha, and that's just because, I don't know, I felt very close to her character after season 3. But anyway, yeah, so that piece of music that accompanied that scene was special to me because it got to wrap up motifs and thematic material that I didn't think we were ever going to hear again. Because, yeah, I didn't think that we would ever see the character again. So that was sad. And it was also a good way to tie together a bunch of themes that Jeff had also written for Ruby and Jean that I didn't actually know existed until about halfway through Volume 2. And he's like, so you know they have a theme, right? And I was like, what? So yeah, that all got tied together in that cube. It was sad. It was sad. I cried a lot. I'm sorry. I'll admit it.
So did we.
Yeah, it's the only scene in like literally Ruby history that has ever gotten me to cry. Like, I didn't cry when all this stuff happened at the end of Volume 3, but like
Heartless
that
dick,
scene.
you know that, Cory?
I know.
Cory's
I was
not much
sad,
of a
but I
crier.
didn't cry.
I have cried.
That scene came around and I was just sobbing.
Yeah, well.
I have cried 8 times in the last 2 volumes.
Oh, wow.
2 in the last episode.
Yeah, 2 in chapter
episode
10. Yeah. 2 times I cried in chapter 10. Chapter 10 was very emotional, but with that scene with the Jean and Pyrrha thing, you know, there's another situation of the music and the scene cooperating together to make something truly sad and tragic. In the like, the moment we see Pyrrha on Jean's scroll and their theme starts playing, and it's like it used to be a theme that resembled, you know, happiness and friendship and this bond between these 2 very special characters, and now it's just so tragic to hear it. It's like it just makes you cry because you're
gonna make me cry right now. You know, but you're absolutely right. You're so right. I just want to share that when I first saw the scene, when Ruby wakes up. And she's walking through the woods sort of aimlessly, it looked like to me at first. Like she's kind of whiffing around her hands and stuff. What was not in the export that I saw at first were the little orbs of light.
yeah.
So I'm just glad that when I was working on what I did have to work with, that the sort of chiminess and ambientness was something that, you know, got used, because it was almost like when I actually saw the scene in the end, when it was done, it made sense.
Mm.
Those balls of light, man, really bummed me out. And then when she's talking about, you know, I'm sorry, you know, when she's talking about how he's gotten so much stronger and she really believes in him. I mean, the music has to naturally go from being kind of down to uplifting.
Mm.
But that's bittersweet, of course, because she's gone.
Mm.
I'm sorry.
You're gonna make me cry in a minute.
It really bummed me out, okay? But it was still beautiful.
No.
You know, it was a good thing. Like, I'm not saying the
Yeah.
music, I'm just saying the whole thing together.
Yeah, I agree.
so
No, it was a beautiful scene. Yeah.
That was that, and then the other thing that I was kind of excited about this season, I mean, besides what's coming up, and besides what...
Ugh, don't say that. We're so concerned about the finale.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, it's understandable. I mean, Rooster Teeth is great at cliffhangers, so, you know, you never know what you're going to get.
Stop
like
talking. We're so afraid.
No, I promise not to spoil anything, because if
No,
I
it's just... anything
No.
you say, we just start to like. We're just like,
Okay.
what does it mean?
It just stews.
Oh my gosh! Thank you for saying that. Because no, I'm serious. I'll post shit on Reddit. No, I'll post a track, and it'll have a motif, or it'll have a title, or it'll have something, and the team fandom will just start to tear it apart
We
in
do.
Reddit. Be like,
We do.
this means this. This means that. And it's just like, oh my gosh, what have I done? It's like, stop, just stop. You know? It's
No,
like
we
the-
do though. Yeah, we do.
Yeah. And
Especially, yeah.
On the one hand, it's so completely flattering that you guys are, that you folks are, you kind folks are that into trying to take apart what we're doing and seeing if it means something. That is so flattering, and you know, we love it. I wouldn't change that for the world. But sometimes I worry. Sometimes I worry because there are a couple of people that I've found read into it so much that when I do something musically, or Jeff does something musically that totally makes sense to us, somebody will be like, well, why did they do that? That's not that's not what I thought that meant, you know. And it's like, at a certain point, you kind of have to, like, okay, all right. So here's my example. I've been thinking about this. Think about Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Luke Skywalker is looking out at a horizon of two suns, right? And we hear what is now called the Force theme. But at the time, he didn't know what the Force was. We had no real indication that that is exactly what that theme meant. It was just a theme of longing and hope for something greater than what he was at that point. It didn't mean, but then, so what I'm saying is that by calling it the Force theme, it then becomes so they're talking about the Force, we have to play that theme.
Yeah.
You know?
I see what you mean,
So,
yeah.
right. So in a way, I worry about team fandom getting too locked into certain ideas. I worry about them for numerous reasons. No, I'm serious, because I really care about people, or I hope I do. That sounded weird. But what I mean to say is that I see a lot of fragility. We should probably edit this part out later. But I see a lot of, to be perfectly frank, I see a lot of fragility in team fandom. People that are either, maybe they're a little young, maybe they're a little sensitive, maybe they're overcompensating. And while I have complete respect for all of them, there are certain things that I worry about, like the shippers. I worry that the shippers are so locked into their, what is it, OPT? Is it, or OTP?
OTP, yeah.
That so locked into their OTP that they're either overly trying to influence the story because they know they can, because again, Rooster Teeth is that circular feedback, startup-based, immediacy media type thing. Or if they're going to be crushed when their particular pairing doesn't happen, simply because it wasn't really a part of the story to begin with, That wasn't necessarily a part of the story. It didn't need to be to drive the story. And that's another thing I'd like to say. Narrative doesn't necessarily reveal everything about it. There are a lot of people on the internet. I think I'm going a little bit too far here, maybe political, whatever. There are a lot of people on the internet that I read that they're the opposite of the shippers. They're hating on the shippers, for a particular ship. Maybe that particular ship is against certain values that they have, or something like that. And they'll be brutal to people they don't even know because of the internet. And that really makes me sad. I would like to go on record and say that I am for equal rights for same-sex, homosexual, and lesbian and LGBT rights and inequality and equality. And to see people hating on shippers of same-sex pairings simply because they don't agree with that is very sad to me, especially when the chances that it'll become part of the narrative are really sort of secondary or even tertiary to the actual story itself and the plot. If it was supposed to be in there because it's an actual part of the story, fine. If it's not, it doesn't mean that it's wrong either. Like, even if there is no evidence of, say, Bumblebee, it doesn't mean that you have to, or I'm saying it doesn't mean that people have to vehemently deny the evidence of, and therefore, or go so far as to hate against people who like same-sex pairings, and it's funny because I see more homophobia in Reddit than I do in real life.
Oh my gosh, Reddit, yeah. There's a reason I don't use Reddit.
Yeah, Reddit's terrible, whatever. I mean, I love Reddit, if Reddit's listening.
I don't think Reddit is listening. But I'm so glad that you're saying this, Alex, because, the shipping and sort of OTP side of RWBY comes from, people from the anime sort of community. It's a real anime thing to, ship and that sort of thing. And it's made its way into modern television as well, like into shows like Sherlock and shows like Supernatural and that sort of thing. But, I think that a lot of people ship certain characters together knowing that their ship is never going to be canon, but they just do it because they like the idea of it, they like the creativity behind it, they like... Cory's a filthy Bumblebee shipper, but, he knows that it's probably never going to be a thing in the show, but, he'll still ship it because he loves the idea of those two characters together.
Yeah, I see the evidence that's there, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, if... they are obviously trying to set up Black Sun, and if Black Sun happens, great. That's the direction they took.
Well, here's the other thing about that. Okay, so you're a Bumblebee shipper and you're not. That's fine. I don't blame either one of you for feeling the way that you do, unless it's because you're I'll say it. It's the 21st fucking century. I don't think there's anything wrong with same-sex pairings at all. Okay. But my problem, I also have another problem. It's not just the people hating on that, using that as an avenue to hate on gay and lesbian pairings. It is there's another aspect, and it's also dark, and it's also scary, and it's people that are over sexualizing characters that, one, they're pretty young, two, cartoons, but the thing that gets me the most, I think, is when people use... This is going to be a little hard for me to explain. Okay. There are people that truly believe that love between two people should be loved. And that's great. You know? Like a Bumblebee pairing based on love. That's awesome. You know? But a Bumblebee pairing based on the fact that you just think it would be two hot, you know, wildly attractive, attractively drawn female characters,
Yeah.
you know, to get off to, that's not being pro gay lesbian.
No.
That's being that's
fetishizing.
Yes, exactly. So there are two sides to that shipping thing that really kind of scare me.
Yeah.
And that I'm glad that actually we went in that direction, because I've been kind of wanting to publicly state that, and I've not really found an avenue to do that. And I'm trying to do it delicately, and I'm also trying to do it without too much hate, because I think that too much hate in general is just, it'll be the demise of the world. And too much hate one way or the other, no good.
No. Very eloquently put, Alex. I am glad that you've brought that up, actually, because it is something that Cory and I know have had a lot of discussions about. And God, on Tumblr we have seen some shit. Like,
oh yeah,
I can only very check fine
Tumblr
line
immediately after an episode.
There's a very fine line, I think, when it comes to stuff like shipping. I think that people are entitled to, you know, do what they want, ship who they want, but I don't think anybody's entitled to discriminate against, hate on, or generally make other people's lives difficult because of the things that they like. And you know, Cory is like one of my best friends, and him being a gay person himself, you know, it really offends me when people, you know, attack shippers simply based on the fact that these couples are you know, same sex or whatever. And it's it's really horrible to, you know, there's too much hate in the world as it is, without bringing the hate of reality into these fantastical universes. It's like, just keep it out of there. Just keep it out.
Exactly.
So unnecessary.
So that is so. I'm so glad that we feel the same about this.
Of course.
I really hope that I managed to speak about that in a balanced and I can't say unbiased, because that is how I feel about it, but in a way that doesn't mean that I hate shippers or non-shippers or people that hate on shippers. It just means that I'm worried, I'm sad, I'm saddened, and I'm worried, and I'm concerned.
Don't hate the shippers, hate the haters.
Okay, cool. That's cool.
That works. Yeah, I just think it's so unnecessary, and like, you know, oh, I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? I don't know. Something. Probably something.
It's okay. This actually all stemmed from you asking me what one of my favorite music bits was, and the only other one that I wanted to mention. I know we went off on a real rant there, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Well, that's what the podcast is for. This is for us to discuss the show, and shipping is a part of the show. So
it's true. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. The only other one that I wanted to mention real quick was the moment where Ozpin and Oscar are basically having a conversation to themselves while Oscar's in his room. I had a really lot of fun doing that one, because it was less musical and more, there was an ambient quality to it.
Ambient, I was gonna say.
I'm a real fan of a composer whose name is Steve Reich. And what he does is he does a lot of minimalistic music.
Yeah.
Where there will be basically the same phrase over and over again, but he develops it over a longer period of time. Like okay, so Mozart and Beethoven, it's like you get the motif, right? And then they go off and they do it in 12 different keys, and you hear it, and maybe they'll do it retrograde, maybe they'll do it inverted. That's great. But what Reich will do is he will build that first melody over a long period of time. And then once he's given you every possible way that you could possibly play that melody, then he goes on to the next idea. Then he goes on to the next idea. And it takes a long time, and I know it's an acquired taste, but if you have the patience for it, there's a beauty in this idea that music can just kind of swell in and out and not necessarily need to be motivically driven in a, I guess, traditional classical way. But that's just me. I don't know. You can like whatever you like.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with Steve Reich's work, and I agree with what you've said. Probably one of my favorite things about
You're so agreeable!
Probably one of my favorite things about the score of Ruby is the fact that from day one we have these really established motifs, particularly for the four main girls, Ruby, Weiss, Blake, Yang. From the moment we saw them in their trailers, they have their very obvious themes, and they've continued throughout the volumes. But every single time we've heard those motifs, every single time it's been different. Like, for example, the best thing I can think of is Blake's From Shadows kind of piano motif that gets repeated quite often throughout the volumes, but every time we hear it, it's always slightly different. And yeah. Weiss's theme especially has gone through a lot of different stages. You know, it started off in Volume 1, there was a lot of piano stuff for her, and, you know, but every time we heard it, it was a little bit different. And then Volume 2, probably one of my favorite scores for Weiss, is in No Brakes on the train when she's fighting the White Fang Lieutenant. And it's just Mirror, Mirror, but going really bassy and really epic. Da, 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 and I'm like, this is amazing.
That was Steve Goldshine. And
yes,
that was probably one of his finest moments.
I agree. I think that was one of Steve's finest composing moments, yeah. I love it so much. I just, like, you know, and like all of the themes, every motif, you know, each time we hear it, it's a little bit different. It's in a different style, you know, and especially like the jazzy versions of I Burn and This'll Be the Day in Volume 3 were like two of the things I can think of that, you know, it's just so, like, it's so refreshing to never hear the same piece of music twice. Basically, you recognize the motifs, you are familiar with the motifs, but every time you hear them, they've been used a little bit differently, and it's you know, it's not like other television shows that will have, you know, their one score and they'll replay the same crap throughout the entire season. Not crap, but, you know, the same thing throughout the entire season. And, you know, other animes that have soundtracks, for example, Attack on Titan, I think they played every song on their soundtrack at least twice or three times throughout the first season. And it drove me nuts!
It's a different process. Process.
I think, you know, as well, you can get away with it in Ruby because it is not like a traditional anime. It's not technically even an anime, but, you know, a traditional anime has 22 episodes of 20 minutes each, and it's a lot of screen time to cover. But Ruby, it's, you know, 12 chapters of roughly 12 to, you know, anywhere up to 30 minutes, and, like, you can really afford to score every single moment because there's not as much to score, as much, like, screen time to score. But, like, the care and the detail that goes into the scoring, just, you know, it's so, it just makes the show, it's part of the uniqueness of Ruby, in that no other show has that. No other show does that. It's, like, something that really only Ruby does.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you want me to just sit here and praise you a little bit more there, Alex? because I could do this all day. But unfortunately, we do need to talk about the chapter at some point. So,
sorry.
Yeah,
I know that I've gone off on some tangents. I'm sorry.
No,
and
you're
I feel
perfectly
bad
fine.
because I also feel bad because I've been talking a lot, and I feel like Cory hasn't gotten to say very much.
It's just that the music side of the show is really like, I wish I knew more, but like, I know Beck knows so much. I'm just kind of like, yeah, I like that song.
Okay.
I'm a very musically attuned person, and the score is probably the biggest part of the show for me. Like,
I've always I've known that about. How did remind me how you messaged me on like Rooster Teeth?
Okay,
right?
so I think it was after the soundtrack for Volume 3 came out. And I was listening to the soundtrack and the score in particular, and I was re-listening to Such Arrogance, which is, as you know, my favorite piece. And I was just thinking, my God, this music is amazing. I'm going to jump onto Rooster Teeth right now and message Alex Abraham. Because, you know, I was thinking, like, the score composer is, you know, it's a position that often by fandoms goes overlooked. And, like, people don't think about the score composer a lot. But me being somebody who loves music in the way that I do and who has written their own music and knows somewhat of the process, you know, I just thought, God, I've got to get on Rooster Teeth and tell Alex how good his score was this volume. Because I thought last volume was, you really stepped it up from the previous 2 volumes with your work. And, like, you had, you know, you composed some of the biggest moments in the entire show up until that point. And I just jumped on Rooster Teeth and I messaged you, you know, say thank you for all your hard work and how much I love the volume. And then you went and stalked my YouTube channel, and which I am eternally grateful for.
I'm a very creepy person, apparently.
No, I was actually flabbergasted when you said you watch my videos and you continue to watch my score excerpts and stuff like that. And the fact that it's like your music and it's your baby, and like I'm trying to, like, I'm always so afraid. I'm like, I hope, like, you know, I don't want to like mess with your baby. Like, you know, I'm so passionate about the soundtrack for this show in particular, and I just love the music, and it's such good music that, like, I feel an obligation as a fan and a musical person to showcase it in the best way I know how, which is to make, you know, mixes of all my favorite stuff. But, you know, I don't do the real work behind that. Like, Alex is the one who's responsible, and Steve and Jeff are the ones who are responsible for this music. And, like, all I do is put it in compilations because, you know, I love it and I want people to hear it. And I know that through my videos, people have told me, I didn't know what Ruby was until I watched this, and now I'm obsessed. Like, thank you for introducing me to the show. And that's all I want. That's all I ever want from what I do, is to, you know, spread the love.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And, I know that from the bottom of all of our hearts, we really, really do appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you.
I try very hard not to speak for Jeff because I don't think that's fair. But I know that he is so appreciative of the reactions, the positive reactions, and some of the criticism too. Of course, you know, we only can get better if somebody puts us in our place.
Yeah.
But it's very appreciated.
I think when it comes to criticism, though, it's like, you know, I am somebody who's very opinionated and who likes to express my opinions, but I never talk about something if I don't know what I'm talking about. You know, I do my research. I make sure I know what I'm talking about. What shits me is when people just go off and, oh, I hated that. That was shit. And you're like, well, what didn't you like about it? And they're like, I just didn't like it. You know, have an opinion, but have an educated opinion, please. Like, don't just go off on your uneducated rant about something you know nothing about. And it's like, yeah, I think, you know, criticism, you know, you've got to know something about what you're criticizing in order to criticize it. Because, like, if somebody who has never, you know, written or a note on a stave in their entire life comes along and says, your music is shit, it's like, what what? Why do you think you're entitled to an opinion here? Like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Well,
People are entitled to their opinions, of course, but I think there's a difference between an educated opinion and just an opinion.
I agree with you mostly, and I hate to do this. I really do, because I respect you a lot, and I appreciate everything that you do for the community, and everything that you've said positively about us. But here's how I feel globally about music and about people. I think that really music has developed in such a way that it has become a thing that some people do. But that's not always the way it was. In a lot of cultures still, it is a thing that everybody does because it is a part of life. Now, there is something to be said about having an educated opinion about what traditional and theoretical music is supposed to do and not do. However, I do believe that if somebody hears something and whether or not they have a strong musical background, if they hear something and it elicits a response, negative or positive, that's actually instinctual and shouldn't necessarily be dismissed, even if they don't have the eloquence to describe why it is something didn't work for them sonically. I believe this to a certain extent with a lot of different mediums, not just sound, but with visual art, architecture, cooking, you know. There is something, of course, to be said about learning to have a refined palette in any of those mediums, and that's totally respectable, and those people deserve to be critics. But at the same time, I do believe that certain musical structures and harmonies are instinctual and innate. And I am not offended when somebody who has not spent a lot of time learning about music and learning about what a thing should or shouldn't sound like says, I didn't like that. Because there's just as many people who, that don't have a musical background, will say, that sounded really cool. I mean, we don't dismiss their opinion because it's positive.
No.
We say, yeah, it sounded really cool. You know?
Yeah, no,
it's
I think
easy.
actually music is a bad example because it is so open to, you know, what people like.
I'm not trying to just be contrary right now to you. I so respect where you're coming from, and I because I know that where you're coming from is from a place of, you know, of intelligent criticism and intelligently refined opinion, and that is very respectable, and I don't want to bash that at all.
No,
but
no, but you're absolutely right. Music is a poor example. I'm talking like more on the sort of prospects of, you know, animation, for example. That's something that's not really, you know, some people will go, I'll see a piece of animation in the show and think, oh my gosh, that looks so good, you know, I can see all the hard work that's gone into that. Someone will come along and go, that looks terrible. And I'm like, are we watching the same show? And like something like music, because it is so open to interpretation and an individual's preferences, is probably a bad example. But, you know, music is is very much about feeling, whereas something like animation is more about technicality and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of, like, you know, you have to know something about animation to criticize animation, I think. But music is more like, you know, or not necessarily even know something about it, but you have to be sympathetic to the process that's involved, or like to the amount of work that goes into, you know, animating something. I've never animated a thing in my life. I do my research, like I said, because of RWBY. You know, I know more than I used to before I started watching the show. But I make sure that, you know, even if I don't like the way a piece of animation looks, and I've not liked plenty of animation in the show, and I've said that before, that you know, this looked a bit funny, or like that was just a little wonky. I think I even said it last week, but you know, I am still sympathetic to the amount of work and, you know, the process behind having to animate that shot that just didn't quite turn out quite right. And it's like, you know, that happens. But, you know, the people that just come along and, you know, run their mouth and that sort of thing, like, drives me insane. But, yeah.
I think that what you more mean to say is that, like, you don't like the people who will come along to hate and just kind of just to be mean or just to be negative and not really, like, they don't kind of empathize with people, or they don't, like, you know, I don't know, they disregard people's feelings. Or people are allowed to not like things, but what they're not allowed to do is disregard the work and the careful process that's gone into what they don't like, is what I think I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. I actually ran out of space again. I had to make some space really quickly. But we're going to talk about Chapter 11 now. I don't know how much time we're going to have to talk about it, but Cory's got his notes there. So, yeah.
I'm prepared as usual.
So, I mentioned in my reaction video that I was terrified of this chapter because I'm traumatized from last volume. So I'm glad that it wasn't all as bad as I was kind of expecting it to be. But they set up
no amputations.
No amputations.
No murders.
No murder. Yeah. Yeah. So they set up quite a lot more than I was expecting them to set up in this chapter, and really getting the sense now that this is like, we have one chapter to go, there's a lot to wrap up, and they're setting up the end of everybody's storylines, so we have a lot to get through. Cory, what is the first thing on your list?
Well, I mean, the first scene was obviously Cinder training and everything. I
always forget that this scene is at the start of this chapter because so much happens after it that I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So, Cinder.
But yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was weird. I don't know. Just the one thing with that scene I thought was most interesting was after Tyrion comes back and he informs Salem that he's most likely killed Crow.
Yeah.
She says, the last eye is blinded. And I was like, is this a reference? Like, people have compared Crow and Raven to Odin's two birds. Oh, whose names I can't remember.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering, like, is this sort of her way of saying that? But if that's the case, who's Odin in this situation? And that also means then that Raven was already blinded, so I don't know. It was a really weird line, because I was like, it implies something that doesn't make sense.
I think you guys know more about this show than I do.
Yeah.
You're too busy working on it. Yeah, no, just the way she said, "You disappoint me." I was like, "Oh shit, Tyrion, you're in trouble."
Oh yeah.
I tried to emphasize that with like a big old bang right after.
Yeah, the music is like, and I'm like, you're fucked.
It was basically like a, yeah, fuck you, Tyrion.
I love the divine motive whenever Salem's on screen. It's like, I'm like,
yeah,
it's so creepy.
That was another like that came about. Oh God, you know what? Fuck it, I'm not gonna talk. you guys, we got to keep going with the episode thing.
I know. I just want to talk about everything, but it's like, we're running out of time.
Sorry.
Yeah, so, and the next part with Tyrion was obviously super disturbing.
So scary.
Good,
it makes me so uncomfortable. I literally, like, when I saw it, my reaction, I was like, I wanted to look away, because I was like, this is terrifying.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
It was really
Good.
disturbing. It made us really uncomfortable. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad.
And then happy Yang scene. Like, this was a really good scene, one that I wasn't probably expecting to get in this chapter, because, like, and you know, it was really, again, Tai Yang manages to say what the audience is thinking, in that, like, you know, he's asking Yang, where are you gonna go? You know, your sister's out there, your mother's out there, your friends are out there somewhere, where are you gonna go? And it's like, obviously she's probably gonna head for Mistral, because it's setting up everybody convening on Mistral, so, yeah, it'd be weird if Yang just decided to go hang out in Vacuo for a while or something. So, yeah, I
Plus,
think...
it is also kind of implied Raven's there, based on Crow's earlier interaction with her.
Raven's in Mistral, Ruby's in Mistral, Blake's heading for Mistral now, Weiss is heading for Mistral now, everybody's heading for Mistral, and so is Oscar and Ozpin, so... Yeah, we already know where she's going, but it's a question of what is she looking for? What is she seeking, and what is she hoping to find? Also, I love that she painted her arm the same colours as the half of Ember Celica that's left. That was really a nice touch.
I thought it would be so cool if she painted her new arm gold. That way she would have the touch of Midas and turn everything into gold.
Yeah.
Because the song Gold.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been really clever, but nobody went for it.
Oh.
Mainly because I don't write for the show, and probably should not be putting out my ideas.
Yeah, so. No, this was a good scene, you know, and they didn't show her answering the question, and they're leaving us on a cliff there, but one thing about Yang is that before the volume even started, they teased the concept art of all the 4 girls' new outfits, and Yang's was teased, we only saw part of it. There is 1 chapter left to go, and she has not put that damn thing on yet, so I'm hoping we're getting to see that in the finale.
Yeah, we're definitely going to.
Hopefully. Please show it to us. I'm dying to know what the rest of it looks like.
I'm disappointed that Tai isn't going with her. Like,
yeah,
you and I,
too.
every time we speculated throughout the volume, we would talk about her and Tai Yang going together. Yeah. And now she's heading off on her own, and we're like, wait!
Maybe he figures that this is something that she needs to do on her own. But I don't know if she's really ready for that just yet.
Dude's got a dog to look after.
What's Zwei gonna do?
You can't leave Pooch at home alone. It'll get lonely.
Zwei is too adorable.
Yeah.
Who was after Yang? Was it Weiss?
Weiss came next.
Weiss was after Yang, yeah. This is, again, a moment we've been waiting for Weiss's story. She's finally getting the fuck out of there. Not in the way that we were quite expecting, though. I assumed that she was going to seek Ironwood's help, but in reality, she ended up not doing that. So,
She also didn't go out the window she broke. That's what I kind of thought was happening.
Yeah. No, it was an interesting scene, and it was animated really well, I thought. Considering there was a lot of walking in this scene. The walking is something that's been done really well this volume, whereas in previous volumes, not so much. But, yeah, so Weiss... Let's talk about the bit with Ironwood, actually.
Okay.
So Winter has messaged Ironwood, obviously, and told him, you know, something's going down in Mistral on a scale of what went down at Beacon. So,
yeah, dust prices are rising, weapons are being bought, something's happening.
Something's happening. So now we know where Winter Schnee is, and we're going to get to see her next volume. Yay! I've missed Winter. I like Winter very much. But, yeah, so that ultimately was Weiss's reason for heading to Mistral. Which we assumed all of the characters were going to do. So, yeah, I don't know what to say about this chapter, because it was basically proving everything I
Setting
was
up the
thinking.
next one.
Yeah, well, it was confirming everything I was thinking. Like, you know, all the characters are headed to Mistral now, and it was like, setting up everything we were waiting for, really. So, yeah, like...
You think all the characters are heading to Mistral?
Not all of them.
Yeah, I think the 4 girls are,
The 4 girls...
Because...
And Sun.
I mean, they've flat out said
Oscar.
that Weiss is going there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty heavily implied Yang is. And then, because last chapter we saw, what was his name? Hazel near the train with Oscar. And he was sent to see Sienna Khan. And now Blake is going to be heading there. I think it's kind of...
Yeah.
They're kind of trying to set up that that's where Sienna Khan is. Because Hazel's there.
And also, Gira told Blake that, you know, there's going to be... The White Fang are going to attack Mistral Academy. So, Haven Academy, sorry. Yeah, so, you know, every character's getting their own reasons to converge on Mistral and setting up for... I don't know about reunion just yet, but something's going to go down. Obviously, they don't want another Fall of Beacon. So... I think that the enemy's a little too arrogant to think that they can just pull that off a second time. After...
Yeah, 3 months after.
Yeah, like, everybody is still reeling from the fall of Beacon, especially the main characters, and now that they're all aware of this threat, they're all going there, and they're all gonna try and do something about it. I don't know about Yang specifically. I think Yang's got her own agenda. But definitely Blake and Weiss and Ruby are headed there. And I mean, Ruby's been stalled right now because of everything that's going on. They have their own problems, but definitely Wyke and... I said it again, except I said Wyke and Blaze. Weiss and Blake are heading to Mistral under the pretenses of this threat. So... Yeah,
and
I don't
still
think
also
they're
kind of all with their own agendas within that, too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Weiss is looking for her sister. Blake is after the White Fang. Ruby wants to get there. Why is she going there again? Oh, because it was their only lead to Cinder's, you know, group. And Yang, because she wants to find her mother or her sister, or both. And then Oscar, obviously, because Osmond told him to. So, yeah, setting up for some interesting finale. I don't know if we're going to see every character in the finale still.
I still think... but that's the thing is, because they're obvious... I mean, there has to be a fight scene in the next one with the Knuckle.
Obviously.
Like, that's just an obvious thing that's going to happen.
It's the finale. There obviously has to be a fight.
And I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like they still have to show everybody. Like, even... Oscar and Salem and all of them, like, they kind of have to show everybody. It's just, I don't know how they'll have time to do it.
Unless it's going to be super long.
Yeah, like last year.
I hope it is. I hope it's going to be super long. Actually, funny story about the Ruby Volume 4 finale being screened at RTX Sydney. So I found out that it is not, in fact, being shown at the Ruby panel. It's, in fact, an entirely separate event to the Ruby panel. So it's being shown Saturday night at 6 p.m. after the convention closes. And it goes until 7. So the event's going for an hour. And theatre mode starts at 7. So I'm hoping it's a decently long episode.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Why would they show it at 6 if it's a... You're ahead of us. Are you ahead of us?
Yeah.
Oh, so it is before what would be the real release.
Yeah, it's being
they'll
shown...
see it about
it's being
8
shown
hours
6...
before.
Usually the episodes come out at about 3 a.m. my time on a Sunday. But they're showing the episode at 6 p.m. on Saturday night, which is about... Yeah, like... I can't
9
count.
hours.
Yeah, like 8 or 9 hours before release, yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So, and that's if I can even get into the panel, because, you know, there's going to be a lot of people trying to get into that panel. Yeah, so what were we talking about?
Weiss's scene?
Weiss.
Well, more
Yeah.
Ironwood's part of the episode is kind of what we were talking about.
I liked Ironwood kind of putting Jacques in his place in this scene. Like, you know, something is obviously happening, and all Jacques can care about is his money and his company. And Ironwood's like,
Really?
fuck you, this is bigger than all of that.
I actually got the completely opposite impression. I
Did
thought
you?
Ironwood was being a huge dick.
Did you?
Like,
I thought Ironwood was being totally reasonable. Jacques
I
is an
mean, like-
asshole.
Jacques is an asshole, but like he was like, I have power now. You want to be on my good side. I'm closing the borders. Like he seemed like Ozpin was a fool. If he had listened to me, the fall of Beacon would have never happened. Like
To be
I
fair,
thought he
though,
was being so airheaded.
to be fair though, James
Airhead?
doesn't know what Ozpin knows at this
That's
stage.
true.
As far as James is concerned, Ozpin is dead. He doesn't know about anything that's going on with Oscar right now. He's totally, completely out of the loop where all of that is concerned. Where the fuck is Glinda? Oh, she's still in Vale. Just random thought popped in my head. But I totally get where Ironwood is coming from. He's, you know, Jacques, all he cares about is his money and his company. He doesn't care about the well-being of the people of Mistral. Whereas James does give a crap. So he's like, you listen to me now, this is what we're doing, and I don't care if you're annoyed, and you better stay on my fucking good side, bitch. So, you know, like, James Ironwood is the last person you want to piss off. Really. So, but, you know, yeah, I get where James is coming from in that scene. I didn't find him to be too over the top. I mean, Jacques frustrates me.
I'm superbly biased, so perhaps I should not weigh in on this. But if I was looking at this, and I am trying to, if I was looking at this completely from a viewer perspective, because I have no idea, not a clue what happens next season. But if I was just basing this off of viewing that scene without having sort of worked on it, I actually lean more towards Cory's side.
Really?
And I think that yes, and I think that's a cultural perspective, where historically a couple of times in the United States, we as a country have found ourselves under the leadership of somebody who will take ultimate control and shut down borders.
Donald Trump.
Well, not.
I didn't
not
say
just
anything.
him.
I didn't say anything.
Not.
You know, it's not the first time. Yeah.
Really not trying to base this off of. I'm not trying to base this off of Donald Trump. It's not the first time that we've had an embargo. It's not the first time that we've as a country have basically alienated ourselves from the rest of the world, and historically, it's usually not gone very well. And I think that Cory's perspective on this might be, you know, like for me, influenced by knowing that history of you know, what we've read in textbooks about the United States when it comes to when we basically shut ourselves off from the world, and it's usually not good.
Maybe it
And
is
it
a
used-
cultural thing. Yeah, I don't have that as part of my, like, country's history. Our country doesn't have much history to begin with, but... Yeah, no, like, sorry, something is attacking my foot right now. A bug.
That's not supposed to be a diss about any other culture, by the way. I'm sure that there are
No.
plenty of other cultures that have dealt with that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that I think between the two of you, I actually lean more towards Cory's perspective. As a viewer.
I don't know, I just kind of...
That's just my 2 cents. Just my 2 cents.
I feel kind of bad for Ironwood, because he's in a pretty difficult position. And, I think that he really doesn't quite know what to do. and he's a little bit lost without the guidance of Ozpin and, you know, the rest of the people that were involved in that little group that they had. I think he's just doing what he thinks is best. Whether it's actually what's best or not is the real question.
I agree and I disagree. I do think that he is trying to do his best, but from the very moment we met James Ironwood, he came across, you know, even if there have been moments where he's a genuinely good person, and I do feel like the narrative has led us to believe that. I'm not saying that that's not true. I'm just saying that that's what the narrative has led us to believe. He has always come across as somebody who believes in might and believes in, but also believes in right, but also believes that they are both of those things.
Yeah.
So, in a way, I don't think it's a matter of him not having the guidance of Ozpin or the other people involved. I think he never really felt like he wanted or needed that.
Perhaps,
I think that I almost wonder sometimes, and this again is just from a viewer perspective, if in a way he's almost relieved that he's not being held back by other people who have a more, I'm not going to say the word religious because that's not what I mean, but a more traditional and sort of mythological background, like Oz, or somebody, or other people like that.
It could very well be, you know, it could very well be that. I can see that perspective as well. But
again, that's just me, and I really hope that everybody who's watching this knows that I'm saying that coming completely from a viewer perspective and not reading into it because they think I know something, because I don't. He knows nothing. I'm just right. Just based off of me reading his character just through watching the show.
James Ironwood really is the Jaime Lannister of RWBY, because, as a character, he's gone through...
That's a great comparison.
He's gone through such a roller coaster of, you know, love, hate, love, hate, love, hate. We don't know what to think about him or where he's going to go next. So, you know, I started off as really not liking his character, and Volume 3, I thought, okay, he's okay. And this volume, I've actually really liked him even more. But next volume again, it can go another way. It's like, yeah.
I know, and that's the scary part, because every time that I'm like, oh man, oh he sucks, oh man, he's a fucking badass, and he's the greatest person ever, and you know, oh man, total clutch moment for Ironwood, getting in there and being the awesome good guy that we all were feeling and hoping that he was or is, and blah blah blah. And one of my favorite moments in this whole season was way back in episode, I don't know, 6 or 7, when it's or maybe it was earlier than that, when they're at the party and he's like, she's the only one making any sense around here.
That was chapter 6.
Total mic drop, and you know, just walks away. I'm sick of all of your pompous bullshit. You know, fuck all y'all. You know, she's got it right. You guys suck. You know, in that moment when I just was like, yeah, everybody's gonna love Ironwood after this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then they were then they threw this scene in there, and I was just like, man, I don't know again.
Yeah, I think Ironwood 2 does have a lot of deeply rooted issues relating to his past. We still don't know exactly what happened to him, so that, at some point he's lost half of his body, literally. Half of his body is metal. We don't know the circumstances behind that injury. Obviously, that would change anybody as a person. So, you know, I think he's on a level where he doesn't want to see the suffering of thousands on a sympathetic level that other people are not on.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll move on from this scene now because we've still got a bit to talk about. But yeah,
Sorry.
Weiss.
Well, I did actually just want to say one more thing. Is based on this is something that Alex made me think about. Is I almost wonder if like, and I don't want to go into too much into this, but if a lot of it is kind of based almost on his culture, like Mantle Atlas culture.
Yeah, possibly.
Because what we've learned through World of Remnants is that like they were kind of like totalitarian, communistic kind of thing. Yeah. So maybe that's almost influencing why he's so like, I will take control. But
it's true, yeah. So Weiss finally gets out of her house. The moment with Klein was quite cute, as always, and it makes me really fear for Klein's future as well. I feel like he's a dead man. Which would be sad because he's such an underdeveloped character and he could be a really interesting character. And, we haven't even seen all 7 of his personalities yet. So, like, yeah, I love Klein and it's very dangerous to love a character in this show now because they always kill the ones you love. Bastards. Yeah, but, I mean, you love like them all to a certain extent. Yeah, Ren's mum. Poor Ren's mum. Yeah, so Blake's scene was after that, wasn't it? So basically we finally get to hear her verbalize, this is why I left my friends behind. I don't want anybody getting hurt now because of me, which we knew that was how she felt. And we knew that was why she left, but she's never actually said that. And Sun was like, well, bitch, you don't get to make my decisions for me. And, it's not about, it's I do these things to protect you because I want to do them. Not because, like, that's what loving somebody is about, And it's not a matter of, like, you get to make my decisions, I don't want you to get hurt, so you're not getting involved. And he's like, well, that's not your choice to make. And if I get hurt because of this, then that's not your fault either. But something he said bothered me. He said, I'm sure Yang would say the same thing, and I'm not so sure that she would. I think Yang is still harboring quite a lot of anger towards Blake for taking off after that happened. Because, I'm sure she's feeling like, I took an arm for you and you couldn't even, and you just left.
I don't know. I feel like Yang would say that because it was if the context was still kind of almost the same. That like I left because I didn't want you to get hurt and I didn't want to put forced danger on you. Blah blah blah. I feel like she would say, well, that's not your choice to make. Like
yeah, well, she would say that part of it.
To go in.
But what I mean is like yeah, I think that Yang's situation is different because like. I feel like she is angry at Blake and she wants answers, but I feel like once she gets them, Sun is absolutely right. She would say the same thing. Once she understood exactly why Blake left. I think deep down she knows that Blake may have left to prevent anything else from happening to her, but in a way she's already suffered because, like, she's already suffered to protect Blake. She's already lost her arm, like, what more could they do to her, apart from kill her, obviously, but, and she's gonna be out for blood at some point. She's gonna be out for Adam's blood, and, I don't know if I see Yang and Blake being reunited anywhere in the near future, like, next volume, I don't know, it's kinda, until I see the finale, I really can't say where it's gonna go. Because there's, like, still so much to wrap up and still so much to set up for the next volume. And, until I know how Blake and Yang's stories end this volume, I can't predict how they're gonna, turn out next volume. So, that's all I'll say about that. But, yeah, so Weiss's, part, so Gira tells her that the one apparently Adam is planning Yeah. Adam is apparently planning to overthrow Sienna Khan and launch a full-scale attack on Haven Academy. Now, I don't know if that's just what Gira's been told, but I still believe that Sienna Khan is behind, you know, I don't think that Adam is operating outside of his orders, is what I think. He may be to an extent, but I don't know, it's a little confusing, because at the very beginning of the volume, you know, Salem was saying, you know, Adam's proven loyal, make sure Sienna Khan feels the same. So she kind of sets up this sort of discrepancy between how Adam thinks the situation should be handled and how Sienna thinks the situation should be handled. But obviously, since she took control, I keep calling her she, I assume it's she, but since she took control, the White Fang has been operating on a much more violent level. But whether she actually wants to, or even knows about the Salem plot, is a different question entirely, and one that only she can really answer for us. So, for now, I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt, but I'm skeptical.
Well, I mean, you said that it's based on what Gira had been told, but he got all of his information off of Ilya's phone.
Yes, he did.
Ilya's
scroll. That's true, yeah.
So you know, it is kind of, I mean, it is still probably very reliable information. But you said that, like, you know, Salem told Hazel to make sure Sienna Khan is cooperative too. That could almost be taken in a way of she cooperates, or you kill her, you oust her, you put Adam in control.
The frames have just dropped on the recording, so we'll go through the Ranger bit at the end really quickly. So the Knuckler v. Grimm that destroyed Ren and Nora's village is back, obviously, and, you know, Ren is having some serious emotional problems dealing with that. But now what we're setting up is a Ranger versus Knuckler v. Grimm fight that's going to go down next chapter. And my biggest question is, what is Crow's involvement in all of this going to be? Is he going to get up and try and fight and get himself killed? You know, is Ren going to die? Is Nora going to die? I fucking hope not. What's going to happen to them is my biggest question there. That Grimm is seriously not to be messed with. So, and I'm looking forward to seeing it in action as well, because it's super creepy, and I can't wait to see what it can actually do, because it destroyed whole villages with basically no help. So what can it do? Like, what is it capable of? And obviously it has some level of intelligence. Like, it was collecting trophies, for goodness sake. What Grimm does that? So I can't wait to see what it's capable of, and it's going to be terrifying, and Ren's probably going to die, and Crow's probably going to die, and it's all going to be awful, so I'm just so scared.
I don't know. The things I want to say about that is that I think that if anyone's going to die, it's going to be Ren. I'm still not convinced Crow's going to die. I think that either Jean's going to get his semblance finally, I'm hoping, or Ruby's going to go all Silver-Eyed Warrior, or both. And hopefully nothing.
But what about Neith Olm's tweet?
I think if someone's going to die,
I'm so angry at Neith Olm's tweet about his Rooster Teeth profile post, because he was like, everybody wants to know about what's going to happen to a certain couple. Oh, you'll find out soon, but it's not going to be only Ren's fangirls that have a strong reaction. I was like, God damn you, Neith, do not say that. Like, now I'm super worried about Nora. I'm like, what are they going to do to Nora? They literally cannot hurt Nora. Don't do that to me.
I know. I almost thought of that in a way that he meant that in a way of, like, it's going to be normal fans too, like not just the Ren super
Nora,
fans.
I will kill them.
So I don't know.
I will murder them if they hurt Nora. No, but seriously, Nora, you know, with the Juniper death theory, Nora is probably going to be gone eventually, but just not right now, please. Can't handle it. I have emotionally prepared for Ren and Crow. I am not emotionally prepared for Nora, so do not hurt Nora. We've
gotten too much Ren.
It is very dangerous to develop a character, because then
dangerous.
Off they go. They did that with Penny, they did that with Pyrrha. They didn't quite do it with Roman, but he wasn't meant to be in it as long as he was anyway, so... so... I'm so afraid of the Yeah, I'm just so afraid of the finale. You guys
We should
know.
probably wrap
I've
this
said
up.
it multiple times. I don't want anyone to die, but you know, I have to resign myself to the fact that they will.
Let me find a way to resolve, not resolve any of that, but I think it's funny that if you add a Q to Team Ranger, it becomes Team Ranger.
Oh, because Crow! Oh, I was like...
And Crow puts... Because Crow puts the jerk
Wow.
in Team Ranger.
And with that awful pun...
That's funny.
We're gonna bid you farewell until next week. I want to reiterate that I am not 100% sure if I will have a reaction video to Chapter 12. Just because I'm going to RTX Sydney, I don't know if I'm going to get into the panel to see it early or not. If I do, I will try and, like, record my face awkwardly, if I can. I'm not going to record the episode, obviously, because I cannot do that. But, yeah, and I really don't know. If I don't get into the panel, obviously I'll record my reaction as per normal in the hotel room in the morning. But, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a tricky one. If I have no Chapter 12 reaction at all, I apologise. And that's just how it's going to have to be. But obviously we'll have the podcast. We'll have the podcast to talk about it. And
So love the podcast.
I'll talk about my experience at RTX if I do get into that panel as well. So I'll talk about it anyway. You won't be able to shut me up. But yeah, and this podcast will not be going up before RTX Sydney because I fly tomorrow morning and I'm not going to have time to edit this. So... yeah, so this will be out next week, and the Chapter 12 one will be out next week, or maybe the week after. It really depends. So yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
once
12 we
again,
get a lot
Alex
more
Abraham,
liberty
thank you
with.
so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure chatting to you about everything we chatted about.
It's been so much fun. I really, really, really appreciate it.
No,
I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. You guys
Thank
are awesome.
you. I hope
and
you
I
never
hope that
stop
you
composing
always
for
continue
Ruby
what you
because
do.
that would be tragic. Yeah, thank you so much for all your hard work this volume and previous volumes and volumes to come, and can't wait to hear what you do with Volume 5, or even the finale. Like, oh my god, I'm so scared. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking now. Okay, thank you so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you for the finale podcast. Bye!